thank you all for joining us today in person, and those for you online, and then those for you listening to this later. So today we're going to head off our second Herb Innovation Center THInC Share, and we'll have another one next week on Wednesday with Colleen Fitzpatrick talking about Rocket Kids. But today we have our special guest speaker, a former graduate of our PhD program.
Three-time
alum. There we go.
Yeah.
Ching, 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 ching. And Dr. Pierrette Renée Dagg is going to give us a little talk research, but basically turning a dissertation to dollars, transitioning academic research into funded projects. Some of that journey and that pathway, I had a nice chance to look at her slides and her notes. And, you know, if I were a grad student or even a faculty member outside of my role right now, this is a must attend, must listen to again presentation to really turn your research or dissertation to grant dollars. So, Dr. Dagg,
all right,
take it away.
Thank you very much. As I'm going through, you're monitoring the chat. So if anybody does have any questions, sure, let me know. I would rather this just be a conversation.
Okay.
When you asked me to present this, I kind of tackled it in a way that is just going to explore my journey. So if there are any questions or anything like that, let me know. I figured just firsthand experience is probably the best way to share and teach. What I love about my job is, as a researcher and someone that takes research, my goal is to bridge the gap between academia and praxis. So I take published research that I do. I find funding to then conduct programs in the real world and then conduct additional research on the efficacy of that. And that allows me to have such a wide breadth of portfolio and expertise. So just as an example, right now I'm managing about anywhere between $15 and $17 million, depending on where some of these executive orders land, in all sorts of areas, from social services, computer networking, broadband, AI, things like that. So just to give you kind of an idea of the types of projects that this process that I have messily come up with that I could use some that gives you a pretty wide variety here. So this is just an example. Some of the things. So for example, worldwide censored internet users face a future of very diminishing internet freedoms. So typical circumvention tools are less effective. This is particularly true in communist countries. So right now we're supporting researchers and medical personnel being able to, in 8 different communist countries, access the free and open internet. And we do this through this process. This is my fancy diagram of how we get places like China and Myanmar actual access in secret to the free and open internet. So this is one project. It's called Refraction Network. Just a few weeks ago, I had a conversation with a community in northern Michigan that resides next to a national forest. The township administrator there told me that a few years ago, there was a forest fire and, quote unquote, everyone damn near died. There is no internet connectivity or cell phone service, and almost none of them can get satellite because they're by a national forest. So that there was a fire, this fire chief and 3 volunteers had to go door to door banging on houses to get people to evacuate because there's no connectivity and no digital skills. So one program that I was able to do through a research grant was to bring connectivity and workforce development to the entire community. In order to better understand systemic digital redlining and digital divides based on old historic, we actually worked with the University of Chicago to develop a program called Netrix. We built tiny mini computers on these Raspberry Pis. We were able to deploy them in historically Black neighborhoods and affluent white neighborhoods to be able to make differences in infrastructure and support across countries and across neighborhoods in the United States. A lot of this really worked to support research we were doing that demonstrated that students with poor home internet connectivity in general perform much poorly on a wide variety of metrics. So standardized tests, SAT, intention of going on to STEM and STEAM careers and things like that. I can support the study of advanced genomic for under-resourced researchers. This is something anyone at the University of Toledo has access to, Dr. Toland. If anybody wants to contact me about it. So I've built a partnership with Wayne State University, the University of Michigan, and a few other larger campuses. And we've built a supercomputer and also supercompute storage power. So anyone wanting to do advanced economics or AI and doesn't have the resources on their own campus can now tap into these supercomputers as part of an NSF grant. And so I won't go through all this. So you get the idea, right? We're private sector researchers that take a lot of my anonymized net flow data, are now identifying nation state DNS operators that are controlling the Great Firewall of China. So I've got 450 terabytes of compressed network data that supports this research as well. So as we're talking, securing funding for research, I am sure, because it feels like this to me all the time, can seem like an insurmountable challenge, but strategically bridging theory and practice in the way that I'm going to describe, you can't unlock the presentation I talk about today is going to outline just the process that I have rinsed and repeated my real world experience to secure, and this is out of date at the time we published, $15 million in state, federal, and philanthropic grants in 18 months. Across AI, cybersecurity, network research, digital skilling, workforce development, economic development. So we're going to talk about how to pursue early stage funding, identify opportunities, present your findings in peer-reviewed forums to gain practitioner feedback, and to leverage that into large-scale funding applications. So by building a portfolio of community-validated projects, you can not only strengthen your scholarship, which, you know, for all of us who are researchers at heart, that's the one thing that we want to do, but you can also increase your visibility to funders, establish partnerships, and then demonstrate the real world impact of your work, turning your ideas into action and research and sustainable funding. This is me. I am Dr. Pierrette Renée Dagg. I'm the Director of Research at Merit Network. So Merit is the longest running research and education network. We are a co-op of the public universities in Michigan, and I'm housed at the University of Michigan. I'm an associate at the Close Center for Media and Information Policy at MSU. I'm a fellow at the Marjorie and Charles Benton Opportunity Fund, and I'm also an adjunct instructor at Oakland Community College. So today we're going to talk about, and this is my real formal agenda here, right? We're going to talk about the process. I'm going to give you 3 examples. One example has been funded to the tune of, was funded for $12 million. Then the EOs came in, so we lost a little bit of that, but we're still going strong. So a fund doing, I'm in year 2 of 4 of a performance period. I'm going to talk about one project where I'm in the pilot phase. So I'm not quite ready to seek funding, but we're about midway through the process. And I'm going to talk about a National Darknet Telescope, which is an internet-y thing to catch hackers. And we're going to talk about that. And that's just in the very beginning stages of the idea. Here's my trademark process. What we're going to talk about in terms of those 3 projects that I had, 3 things. Number 1, you want to make money. You want to make a difference in the world. You want to publish research. You want to do this effectively, build your fiefdom of doing good. Build relationships. So we're going to talk about this. LinkedIn, conferences, local agencies, governments, philanthropic partners, seeking people who are already doing work in this space. That 85% of what you're going to do is not research. It's not reading. It's not doing science. It's not crunching numbers. It's not qual interviews. It's not SSPS. It is shaking hands. Whether we like it or not, many of us researchers don't. This is where your success is going to come. Writing, obviously, but writing more than you think and different things than you think. We'll talk about that. Presenting your theories, both in academic formats and in practitioner formats, because one of the biggest complaints I have seen from funding opportunities sources, particularly philanthropy, which we are all going to start relying on a little bit more, or even industry dollars, industry sponsored research dollars, is, yeah, okay, you people in your university hours, nice work. That's not how it operates here, right? So all of us, if we're looking for practical research programs and practical research dollars, need to find ways to bridge theory, best practice, what happens on the ground, street level bureaucracy, and then the ideal state, right? So we'll talk a little bit about how we can find this new reality. Pivoting and iterating, we'll talk about some of my fantastic failures because there are so many. Pilot studies, which is that's a hard one because that's a self-funded thing sometimes, or it's a very scrappy, find a little teeny tiny bit of money, make it work. Writing, presenting, and seeking funding. So when we think about this, we have some research, we have an idea. I'm going to come up with a publication, I'm going to publish it, I'm going to get it peer reviewed, right? Very cool. Now I'm going to go present, and I'll talk about outlets, avenues, and examples of where to present. But you present it everywhere. Your idea is never correct. It's never done. It's never finished. So you're going to academic conferences, getting your butt handed to you. You're going to practitioner conferences, getting your butt handed to you. You're taking all that information, using that to build and develop things like logic models, which will help support your process with funders, and we'll look at that. Then we're going to find ways to conduct pilot studies. And you're going to basically take, here's my published research. Now here's my logic model of how I can turn this into an actual program. Now I'm going to go pilot this. Now I'm going to go conduct another IRB, often with third-party people collecting data, so you're not biased or influenced. I'm going to republish again, because in the end, you're going to have, here's all of these publications about your idea. Here's the feedback I got from practitioners in academia. Here's the logic model of how I iterated. Here is the successful pilot I did, so I can prove my capacity, my institutional capacity, my organizational capacity, my school capacity. Here is the validated IRB, third-party data gathered, and also peer-reviewed publication of the efficacy of what I've done now. So now when you go to a funder, you can say, I have an idea, I have buy-in from the community and relationships, I can do the pilot, and I have proven that this works. Now give me money to do everything else. So the three projects that we're going to talk about, we're doing great on time. The Digital Opportunities Compass is the one that was a fully funded project. I'm in year 2 of 4, closing out year 2 of 4 for the performance period. For this, the goal of this slide is to show you it takes so much more work than you think. For this one, 7 publications peer reviewed, 20 plus presentations over 3 or 4 years, all over the country, 2 different countries. That's not even counting online. This is physical presence, right? Start small. I got a fellowship. Okay, now I can start doing a few pilots. We're doing good, right? Philanthropy. Then following this process, this then resulted in USDA funding round 1, RUS, Broadband Technical Services, round 2, the NTIA's DEAC, $11,400,000. And it is also now a production service. So I have a spin-off nonprofit organization that is doing this work also on their own. Establishing ethical AI governance for local governments. So this is basically understanding how to use, apply, and govern AI in ways that are safe and ethical, and also present efficiencies and improve quality of life for residents. So this is a study pilot. This started with my dissertation. So we are now going back. I started my dissertation 5 years ago, 4 years ago. So this is how long these processes take. 3 peer-reviewed publications and a dissertation, 15 presentations, and I'm just now starting the pilot study.
Dr. Dagg, were those 15 presentations a mixture of virtual, going to physical conferences, maybe invited talk across campus, or can you elaborate on that?
Yeah, I would say 80 to 90% were face-to-face. A lot of them were keynotes. Really the only virtual one I did, the State of California School Boards Association has adopted the logic model and ethical framework across the state of California. So for that one, I actually did virtual because it was the school boards for the entire state.
Yeah. So if I'm looking at your timeline, if I understand it right, so you get your dissertation, which started around 4 or 5 years ago-ish. That's about how long it took you from start to finish, right?
Yeah. Oh, no, no, dissertation was like 10 months.
Okay. So, yeah. Okay. A year.
Yeah.
Okay. 10 months. And then after the dissertation, 3 publications proceeded in peer-reviewed journal articles.
Yes.
So that's like a 2, 3 year, 4 year process for those. Okay. And then 15 presentations from the moment dissertation is finished and afterwards.
I think I was presenting even before dissertation finished.
Okay. And then the keynote presentations were coming after dissertation, some of the publications.
Yep.
Okay.
Yep.
And then pilot study currently actually
Just started a month ago.
Okay. So this is like, so let's rewind for a second, right? From dissertation to now, you're sitting about 5 years into all of this?
Mm-hmm. 4.5 or 5.
Okay.
And I will be ready to seek large scale NSF funding spring.
Okay.
Maybe fall. If it goes well, probably spring.
Yeah. There's always, if it goes well, right?
If it goes well.
Because the cycle might take a year.
Yep.
To wait and then if it's a hit or not.
Yeah. And the other thing that this points out too is my last slide is just an example of all of the projects I'm either PI on, sub on, or the people that work for me or work with me are PIs or subs on. And I'll show you how wide the breadth of this portfolio is too. So this is for everybody, but like for me, if you want to be successful in this, you got to have 7 or 8 pots cooking at a time, because funding changes, needs change, the federal landscape changes, the philanthropic landscape, like everything is always in flux. So you've got to have a lot of things in the hopper all at once. If this is I'm not saying this is the career path, this is just one way to do it. The last one here, this National Darknet Internet Telescope. This is basically, just to give you an idea of what this is, it is a way to identify when bad guy hackers come trying to bang on your door. It helps you understand who they are and what their calling cards are before they come, right? So we are doing this right now. We're operating the Orion, I think is the 3rd largest internet telescope in North America. And so I've now proposed to build the largest one in the world. And very much like the Very Wide Array, with satellite dishes in space, if you have one this much of the sky or the internet, if we have them strategically stationed across the United States and we are now collaborating, you can see a more global macro picture of threats and threat intelligence on the internet. And that will help researchers to create things that are better tools to block, better ways to plan. It'll strengthen state and national security and those types of things. So this idea, I've done 3 presentations, which I have traveled California, then I was in Hartford, Connecticut, and Houston, Texas. I went everywhere to try to meet everybody. There was anybody that could help me. This helps is that this is building upon an existing NSF grant-funded project and prior publications. So that's one thing that's really great is like just with the Digital Opportunities Compass, those things stack. Is the same way. Like if you can get an idea funded and get part of the way there, then you can get the next part of the way, the next part of the way, and the next part of the way, which is why also it's really helpful sometimes. Like everybody wants to go for the big one, go for the small one because they stack and open more doors. And that's why like NSF has things like planning grants, right? Like so that's the whole idea is to keep iterating on the idea. So early development stages. So I just created a 1-page overview. I am shaking some babies and getting people to buy in because I need to get the CEOs of state networks to say, yes, I want to do this. So I'm still in the convince everybody this is a good idea stage. So that's kind of the 3 places with these examples. So as I go through here, this is just the Digital Opportunities Compass. I'm going to use this as from just an idea to now I've gotten, my last grant was 11.4, right? So how did I do this? I had an idea in talking with Dr. Bauer. He's the chair of the Quella Center for Media and Information Policy. Up until just a few months ago, he was the chief economist at the FCC, very dear friend of mine. So we worked together at Michigan State University. I'm a research associate there. This started with, he wrote the handbooks for the economic for the internet, had an idea. Him and I started snowballing. And the idea is that when you look at 25 years of published research, the digital divide and actually using skills to help your educational, economic, and well-being mobility, people typically think of what we call the digital inclusion triangle. So they think of access to the internet, a computer, and knowing how to use it. 25 years of research in social science demonstrates that it is all of these systemic barriers in society outside of those 3 things that are actually the barriers. If you get somebody the internet, give them a computer and show them how to use it, all you're doing is solve. That's a Band-Aid for right now. You're not solving for Okay, now what do we do about AI literacy? What do we do when that computer breaks? What do we do when the technology, you're not creating sustainable solutions? So what we want to do is really dive in and understand what are those systemic societal barriers that are creating these issues in the first place? Because this issue, this digital skilling or whatever it is, like the problem is not technology. The problem is not money. It is a social problem. So how do we understand that? Is it something rooted in education? Is it something rooted in, what is it? So he and I started talking. First thing we did is you'll see in the process, seek out people who are already doing work in this space. So we had Colin Rhinesmith from the Digital Equity Research Center at the New York Metropolitan Library Council. He is now a tenured associate professor at University of Illinois Champaign. Greta Byram, she was at the Benton Institute for Broadband Society, and now she is in a national consulting role. And Erin Schill is the research director at the National Digital Inclusion Alliance. So we sought out people that were already doing this work, and oh wait, some others. So this is literally go on ResearchGate or JSTOR, look up publications for the last year. Who wrote on this? Call them. Go to their university, send them an email, because they're going to know every single time they've done research on this stuff, they're going to have 20 unanswered questions, and they're going to have all of these things that they learned that didn't make it into the papers, and they're going to have other things that they want to do but are just outside of their sphere of expertise. So I held 2 multi-day workshops. These were online. So I asked people from Purdue, USC, Michigan State funding, the Pew Broadband Access Initiative. I had a handful of people from Pew on here, University of Texas at Austin, Oklahoma State University. I asked everybody I could find that was doing work on this to come and do these online workshops with me to help me, run this. Is this crazy? Is this bananas? Does this make sense? And then what do you know? And what have your actual experiences been? What have you researched? Help me to better understand this. So I had these 4 folks over here that you see on the right were actually the co-authors of this. Is a pretty extensive working paper on this research. And then these were all the contributors. So that's what I mean when I say seek out people that are already doing work in this space. And it can, especially as a young researcher, feel like competition. And you don't want to, I don't want to do it. I want to be the only one. This is my idea, or I don't want to, this is my vision and I don't want to compromise it. Or what if I do this and then the grant dollar, this is 17, everybody's got administrative overhead. And now I'm going to, play the long game. So that's probably the hardest lesson I had to learn as a young researcher leaving the PhD program, is to let go. The idea is not yours to control. Science is not yours to control. You don't own anything. Everything in this world is temporary and fleeting, so you may as well use the brains around you. Just to show you an example. So we talked about write, present. This is not even inclusive. This is probably a third. So this one idea that I sought funding on, these are just a few of the peer-reviewed scholarship. A lot of these presentations, probably half of these are juried, half of them are invited. And there are so many more. So you get the idea, and these are all over, right? So Ann Arbor, Lansing, Detroit, Houston, San Antonio, basically all over, right? Washington, D.C. I understand money is hard, right? Like, I'm not coming from this out of touch privileged position of, maybe you have a good job or so. I get it, but you start small, and most of these conferences and most of these events will have scholarships for students, scholarships for early career researchers. They have community funding, and make sure you take advantage of that, because as someone who has put on juried academic conferences, people don't take advantage of it. And then you hear, well, I didn't go because I couldn't afford it. And a lot of times these scholarships will pay for travel, accommodations, attendance, support. We as the research community, we want to build everybody up. So find out. And if they don't, a lot of times your colleges will have money as well. So you can sometimes, and some of these other colleges also. So for example, if we're saying collaborate. I can guarantee you one of them has some money to send you, right? This is just an example of this takes so much longer and so much more effort than you would probably imagine, but at the same idea, are you building a career, right? We're playing the long game here. So this is me, if you couldn't tell. This is the first time I ever presented this idea in an academic forum, right? How many people were in this room? There were 3 people, one of which was my intern that was forced to be there, right? So I'm sure, raise your hand if you've been to an academic conference and presented to an empty room. It's still a line on a CV, right? We all do it.
It happens.
But this is also.
All right.
Yeah. Yeah.
It counts though. It still counts as a line.
Is it the first day or the last day?
Yeah,
Depends on where it is, right?
Yep. But this is to demonstrate that you start small. You start with 1 or 2 people. I met 1 or 2 people there, right? So I met just a couple of people. I happened to run into the executive director of Net Century Cities. I happened to run into somebody from the Pew Foundation at this. Like a lot of it is just showing up, right? So I went from this to this. Oh, okay, we're in a room that's just a little bit bigger. Nice job, girl. Way to go, right? So I had maybe 10 people ask me to come in and teach them this. This was Ottawa County, Michigan, if I remember correctly. I also presented again at Detroit Digital Inclusion Week, slightly bigger, right? Then we go to Net Inclusion, and I presented to 650 people, and I was on some pretty good panel discussions about it. Then I went to the second Net Inclusion. Digitunity picked me up, and then on the left here, what is really cool is that is the Federal Reserve. So I went from presenting to a room full of 3 or 4 people that were voluntold to be in that room to I was the keynote at the very first Federal Reserve Digital Inclusion Conference. So just keep going. Start small. And then here I am. So I start with just me, all the way to now here I was co-presenting with the person that ran the Federal Reserve Bank of Kansas City, Anna from Pew Charitable Trust, Bill Jessley, and Tech Goes Home, which is a national organization, in 2 years. And that's because all I did is I pounded pavement, I made phone calls, I did Zoom meetings, I begged people to help me because you quickly realize when you do things just like any research, you're always going to be the dumbest person in the room and people always know more. So that is just the place to approach all of these things, right? So then I had to do pilots. So I managed to scrape together just a teeny little bit of money from my organization, from a fellowship. I had some sponsor donations. And so we went into a handful of communities, right? So the idea is I have, and I'll show you one logic model example. I have the research. Here's what you do in order to identify these systemic issues in your community. And then here's what you do to mitigate them, build sustainable programs, thus making a more just community and society, right? That's the idea. That's the logic model. So I was so fortunate to have met and built really great relationships. You'll see top left is the, there I am looking very unamused and white at the corner. A long day. This is the Southwest Michigan Planning Commission region. So they represent 86 municipalities. So we did a pilot there. The top 2, you'll see that is actually Benzie County, Michigan, which, because y'all are not from here, Benzie is way up here. So Southwest Michigan is 86 municipalities. Benzie County, I believe, is one of our most rural counties in the Lower Peninsula. So quite different. And then I want a third community as well to see this like wide variety. So the bottom is, that's actually Dr. Jean Hardy there. This is Ingham County. So that is where our capital is in Michigan. So it is the county that hosts the capital. 3 very different types of communities to now take this and do this pilot study. When we did this pilot study, I had a postdoctoral researcher at the time, Dr. Knittel, and she helped with the IRB and then conducted the qualitative and quantitative research to demonstrate whether the process that came out of the published science was effective or not. Luckily, it was. So then we publish. So we're in the Journal of Community Informatics. We published at TPRC, which is the biggest, highest of all community informatics communications. And the paper here was essentially, okay, we published this thing 2 years ago. We did some pilots. Did the science hold up? Lucky for us, it did, right? So we didn't have to do this whole thing over again, but that's generally the idea of what we did. So then we took all of that, $11 million, right? That's how that works. And it's not always going to be this big. This was a once in a generation funding opportunity. It is never going to be like that. Most of them are going to be between $250,000 and about $2.5 million, right? That's generally going to be the sweet spot. But this same process has worked over and over and over again. So remembering the process, we're building relationships. So, hey, I'm interested in this thing. Tell me what you do in it. Help me understand. Go listen to presentations, listen to things like this online that are recorded, right? Local agencies and governments, go to council meetings, go to the planning commissions, go to the school boards, go to, where are the hospitals, just start to meet people. Philanthropic partners, that's another thing too. So like with all these things, the other piece of advice I can give here is don't focus on a transactional meeting. You are not there to get anything because you don't know if it's the right match. You don't know, if you want it or not. This is just, hey, here's what I do. I see it kind of aligns with what you do. Tell me what you do. So then if there's an opportunity in the future, we can connect, we can link up, right? So I would be doing this now, even if it's like just radial to what you're doing, and just kind of keeping logs, right? So seeking people who are already doing it, writing, publishing, presenting any way you can, even if it's just online, making changes. So we'll see about one of my really cool epic 3-time failures here in a minute. Developing and conducting pilot studies, even if they're very small, if we follow science, if we follow the rules, if we follow the IRB, if we follow the scientific method, even if it's a very small study, do it a couple of times. It doesn't have to be expensive. Write some more, present, get money, and then change the world, right? Here's the example that I was going to give. So my dissertation defense, July 13th, 2023. My dissertation were the components of an ethical framework for artificial intelligence as informed by Stoic philosophy. Now, how did I take that dissertation to where I am today conducting my pilot studies? These are, by the way, the general idea of this is to try to understand when we think about, and thank you to Dr. Snowart for his very, very helpful ethics. When we were developing this, the idea is you can't just say, when you're making, whether it's relating, whether it's robo-machine ethics, whether it's the programming, whether it's the algorithmic data, whether it's, is it ethical for police to use facial recognition software? There's so many, this focus specifically on education, but the idea is you cannot just point to laws or social norms and say that's what's right. We all know that there have been large majority parties throughout history that maybe were not the most ethical. We know that there have been laws passed that are maybe not the most ethical. I mean, it's very easy just because of the Belmont Report to point to the Nazi Party, right? So we can't say just the existence of laws and a social norm and a majority makes the thing ethical. So what are then the ethics when we look at this? And this was, it essentially came up with this pretty large set of components, turned it into a governance model. So I said, I've got this ethical framework for AI in education. Now, how do I turn that into a program? How do I do something with this? Because if I just say, oh, hello, Dr. Toland, here are my 90 principles. Can you use them, please? Nobody's ever going to do anything with that, right? That's trash. So what we've instead done is made this logic model, and this was the foundation for the original study. So you have your problem statement. Educational institutions face increased pressure to adopt and use AI tools, but no holistic manual to guide the ethical application of AIED exists. We have some guiding questions. So we're asking what considerations exist for developing culturally appropriate intake models for AIED programs, implementation, processes, sentiment, knowledge bases, concerns, needs, and policies And how should those principles be identified to be leveraged in ongoing decision-making models, right? You have your inputs. This I would suggest anybody trying to take research to practice, follow this. Then you have your activities. So what are you doing? The outputs. What is it going to result in? What are the outcomes, right? So the outcomes, stakeholder institutions are empowered to evaluate and select AI tools for adoption that don't compromise cultural priorities, introduce additional inequities into the learning system. Stakeholders adjust policies and decision-making based on AID. Faculty, staff, and administrators are confident in their tool adoption and use, and there's increased awareness of cultural and larger community impacts and ethical decision-making among higher ed institutions regarding AI adoption. So this was my logic model, right? Step 1, do the dissertation. Step 2, build a program. Examples, again, and this is probably only a third or a half of them. Here are plenty of presentations and scholarship in print. Most recently, I worked with ISTE, and ISTE is actually building a framework based on what we talked about. So this article with ISTE guiding specifically to teacher preparation programs, took a version of the logic model from the dissertation and used that as their foundation. I know, right?
That's fantastic.
Isn't it?
Yes.
Yeah.
And
Surrounded by giants.
Yes, that's awesome.
Yeah. So this, like I said, Dr. Janik and I actually have an afterword in a book that is on pre-order. It's Bloomsbury. If anybody's interested, you can send it my way. Lots of work, right? And then presenting. So I have done 1,000 workshops with local schools, districts, colleges. Western Michigan University is probably like the biggest consortium of teacher resources in the state of Michigan. So everybody kind of comes to them for their repository. I have been on the road nonstop for this thing. California State School Boards Association. So now a lot of the school boards in the ISDs and the K-12. So we're looking at K-12, higher ed. That's a great face. Love that for me. You get the idea. And I'm a failure. Wah, wah.
Aren't we all in the research and grant writing process somehow?
Nobody ever said they wanted to do that when they grew up.
Got to persevere.
Yep. And that's exactly what this is about. So and if anybody has applied for a grant, take the amount of time and work you think it's going to be, quadruple it, cry a little bit, and then maybe you might be close, right? It is a lot of work, and you're doing this on top of everything you already have going on with a hope and a prayer that something's going to happen. This is of high value to practitioners. I have never presented at a conference that was not standing room only, sandwiched in there every single time I have done this thing. I have presented this in rooms of 500, 600, 700 people now at this point. Everybody needs this, right? Because there is no manual for this. Probably the best quote that I've ever heard is a teacher said that, they didn't really know what they were doing because the teachers were looking to the schools and the schools were looking to the Office of Management and, technology, DTMB, and then they were looking to the state and the state was looking to the feds, and the feds are not publishing anything really worthwhile at all, right? So what do we do? So this is very needed. However, where does this fall, right? Like sometimes you have to think, is this National Science Foundation? No. Is this humanities? No. Is this education? No. Like, where is the money for this, right? There's not any. And I managed to find a couple of, so the National Endowment for the Humanities recently started expanding a little bit to technology now, seeing ethical interaction with technology is now kind of a bit of a humanities, right? So they're starting to expand, but they're still like teeny weeny little like $150,000 grants. And I thought, well, maybe I can, get one of those and start pimping. Three flat out, are you kidding me? No's, right? Okay, well, that's telling me you apply for one grant once and you don't get it. That happens. Competition's fierce. 2, okay, you apply for 3, there's something wrong, right? So, pivoting. Again, my buddies at the Southwest Michigan Planning Commission are game for this because they have such a large group of people that they represent. So instead, what I've done is I said, the governance model is the same, right? So we go back to this logic model here. Problem statement's still the same. Take out educational, put in municipalities, right? The guiding questions, still the same. This could be the same for industry as well, but I'm thinking quality of life, right? Every single one of these things is going to be very similar. What's going to change is those ethical principles will change just a little bit, because now we're thinking about social services. We're thinking about, online interaction, building strong digital citizens, building people that are interested in politics, looking at violent crime, property values, economic mobility. So like, the principles will probably change a little bit as we go, but the idea and the framework of all these things is very similar. So we are now in a pilot stage where we are getting together from this planning commission region, people from the planning commission. Step one, I need you people with expertise that, I don't know about public housing. I don't know about public transportation. I'm not an urban planner or a city planner or, whatever it is, right? These people all have their individual domains of areas of expertise. So let's bring all these people together, take what we've got, iterate this into a logic model and a set of viable components to apply these principles to improving quality of life for residents through the ethical adoption and use of AI in municipalities. Step one, I'm going to publish that. We're going to do this little pilot study about what does this group of people think those should be. Publish, publish, publish. Step two, iterate that logic model. Now we're going to do this with 1, 2, 3 municipalities, however many people I can find money to do it for. Then I'm going to have somebody that's not me do the study both, concurrently, and then also at the end to say what worked about this, what didn't. Then I'm going to publish that. So then I'm going to have revised framework, revised governance model. I'm going to have all of this buy-in, the partnerships. I'm going to be presenting everywhere, because if you go to those conferences, people from the funding agencies go there, philanthropists go there, collaborators go there. I'm right now working on, there's a handful of cities in the United States that have done this. And now I'm going to go and say, what's working for you? What's not, right? I'm going to start having these bigger conversations. So now we're going to start this new cycle. So we've talked a little bit about fully funded project and where we're at. Now we're at one that's a pilot. Here's one right here. This is the telescope that we were talking about that is just in the baby infancy. This is a gleam in my eye right now. So this is basically a fancy way of saying what we talked about earlier. We are going to use this to be able to understand where and when there are internet attackers. The idea is basically with an internet telescope, think of it as a street. And if you're a postman, you know that address 111 has a house, address 112 has a house, 113 is an empty lot, 114 has a house. So if we've got 4 long driveways, one of these doesn't have anything built in it. If I'm a postman, I'm going to go deliver mail here. I'm going to deliver mail here. I'm not going to go up the driveway where there's no house. I'm going to go up here where there is one, right? If I am a bad person trying to get in anywhere I can get in to hack, I don't know there's no house, so I'm going to go up every single one of these driveways. So this internet telescope peers out where there should be a house and there isn't, and anybody coming up to the door is automatically a bad guy, most likely, right? So this is going to monitor that, and we're looking at that and comparing it to other global events that are happening on the internet and with hackers and things like that, to basically try to understand who's coming and where. That's a very poor way of describing it, so forgive me. Now imagine being able to do that instead of just on one network, because we own and operate 4,400 miles of fiber optics in the state. So we connect a lot of the state, mostly higher eds, municipalities, K-12s and things like that. Now multiply that by 10, 20, 30, 40, 50. What is that going to do for science and research and cybersecurity? So that's the idea. And right now I'm just in the phase of convincing people who run very large networks that this is a idea to donate their time to a pilot study. Following this same model, this is just an example, and I will not go through this because it is a whole lot of words, but you can see the idea. The whole point here is just keep your fingers in a lot of pots. Everything ebbs and flows. And if you're trying to be a research entrepreneur or whatever, make the biggest impact to the world around you, look for people that you can be co-PIs on. Look for people that you can be sub-award recipients on. Maybe you don't know anything about statistical scalable methodology for performance monitoring, anomaly identification, mapping, network accessibility, because neither do I. But I do know a lot of things. So when I built those little mini computers, I know a whole lot about when we see quality of experience and end users, what some of those issues are. When we see bandwidth problems, so I have a very small little bit that I can contribute to that. I have a very small little bit that I can contribute to most of these things. So when you're meeting people at these events and you kind of do what I do, I kind of do what you do, let's talk. I can contribute 10% to your research project. So A, that's making the world a better place. B, that is increasing your visibility as a researcher in your publications. C, that's making all of these other relationships. So then when I need something and I need an expert to do this one thing that I am, is not my area of expertise, I now can pull you in because I've done you a favor. So that's the whole idea here, is don't just, perhaps contrary to what is typically taught, don't stay in your lane, figure out and get in where you fit in, because that's how you can build more opportunities. So there's the process again. I think we get it. That's all I've got.
Dr. Dagg, that is a lot of information,
Thank you.
and I'm sure that there are questions. So I'm going to open it up to those that are in the room or online. Just go ahead and shout out if you have a question, or drop it in the chat.
So my question, having done grants for a number of years, part of it I agree. I think of it in my own way, which is like, imagine you have a sheet of stamps and each stamp is a grant, right? The hardest thing to do is rip the first stamp off the sheet, because there's more edges that are connected to other things, right? Once you start ripping stamps, it gets easier and easier. And finally, the last stamp is the easiest of all, because there's nothing,
Yeah.
right? Like,
Yeah.
like you have no more barriers. And one of the barriers that you didn't talk about is when you go from the small grant stage to the large grant stage, the difference is really, at least in my experience, all of the back office stuff. In other words, you have this $11 million grant. Now we can start to hire secretaries, and we can start to hire budget managers and so on, and project managers. Like, you can start to automate the various subsystems. But when you're working on a $175,000 grant, like you were saying, it's a teeny tiny. Yeah, and that's a do-it-yourselfer project. That's you have to make yourself coffee. You have to, like, everything is you're doing it. How navigate those waters of, was there just a period where you didn't get any sleep because you're thinking all day and working on paperwork all night, or like, how do you manage that? Is because I've always seen there's an inflection. It's like water, what's that called? Water skiing.
Yeah.
Right? There's a point at which once you get up on top of the water, it's easy. But the transition to go from,
It's like I'm a surfer. Yep.
yeah,
Yep.
in the water to on top, that's where the difficulty. Can you talk about that maybe?
Absolutely. So we have all done a dissertation or are going through it. I'm going to go ahead and bet most of us did not just go to school, right? Most of us had a life or a job or a spouse or a whatever. Those are the struggle years, right?
Yeah.
And that's going to happen. Like, now I am fortunate and grateful enough to be in an organization with enough folks that work in our departments to be able to do that support. At first, no. At first it is, you got a 9 to 5, and then maybe you might get a little bit of the variety of research done. And then at night you're pulling up coffee cup number 5, 6, 7, 8. And now I am doing my auditing reports, and all of the things, my annual report outs, whatever it might be. You're 1,000% correct. It's like having a baby, except it's science.
Triplets. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, there was a question online from Allison, if you could share your slides.
You betcha.
All right, so email me and I will share those slides if you want a copy of them.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Any questions from folks online? Or Mark?
Oh, well, so if there's nothing online, my other question was, did you ever have a giggle project? Giggle project. So when you start doing large grants, this happened to me, where one time I got $750,000 and I wrote a paragraph. Like it gets to the point where like they don't want your logic model anymore. Right? So just write me a paragraph what you're doing, and I call that a giggle project because you got to giggle. It's like, I got all this money and I wrote a paragraph. It's like, break that down by the word. It's like $1,000 a word. So have you had that experience as well?
That's a great question. The grant application and requirement process is wildly different for funding opportunities. So the 2 NSF grants that I'm working on this week are on average of about 130 pages apiece. Writing, research, documentation, budgeting, justification. I mean, it's a lot, right?
Yeah.
Technical assistance round 1, that was a pilot funding program for them. My application for $70,000.
And sometimes foundations are
Oh,
maybe a page or 2, and then other foundations are multiple pages, but.
My $17,000 fellowship, I wrote 4 times as much for
Yeah.
as I did for $1 million.
yeah. It goes back to the water skiing thing. It's like,
Yeah.
you're still in the water at that point. And it's hard. Yeah.
Yeah. I like how you are discussing how like you have to be persistent and continue to persevere.
Mhm.
Be okay with striking out times in a row. But I really like how what I took away, like if I were a grad student, I pretend for a moment. It's like, okay, if you have an idea and you want to shape it later, right? Take your idea, right? And if you can't pitch it for funding, then dig deeper and create your niche and build evidence around it further to then show that you're not just in it for a small season, but you're in it for the long term. And slowly network, kiss those babies, shake those in different positions. Listen, the expectation should be about transactional, but more so your expectation should be, how can I learn and grow from those learning experiences to move things forward? And I've also taken away from this, if I were a grad student, and even still in my role, that you're going to do a lot of things that are passion. Dissertation is typically a passion project. And there's going to be a lot of time and sweat and energy and cups of coffee or cups of tea or lots of water, depending upon which liquid you like to ingest. And it's off the clock. No dollars behind it. Pure passion.
Most of it is off the clock.
Yeah. I know we're closing up on the hour for our session. Are there any other folks online now that want to provide a comment or a question?
And you can, if people have stuff later, you can share my email address out too.
Yeah, if you guys have questions, feel free to email me and I'll share out Dr. Dagg's email.
Cool.
If there are no further questions or comments or giggles,
I put something in the chat. We are actually interested in learning a little bit more about that genomic storage that you have available, because that's becoming a really big deal right now.
Oh, absolutely. And it's not just for genomics. I mean, you could do that. You could do AI. There's enough compute and storage there to do astrophysics, large scale data lakes. So if Dr. Tolan can get you my email address, or you can just, if you email research@merit.edu, that'll get to my folks, and we can definitely connect you. So that should be something that it's open to any researcher that needs it.
Okay.
Anybody else? Okay.
Awesome.
If you guys can turn off your mic and do a small applause for Dr. Dagg, that would be wonderful.
Just in your soul.
Thank you, Dr. Dagg. And thank you all online, and Mark, it's pretty,
Oh,
right?
yeah,
For attending, and you guys have a great day.
thank you. Yeah, I resonated with my son being in China. They're closing down the links to the U.S. These